I also need to read through our hearing script before we begin. This basically just covers the procedure of the hearing, and then we'll jump right into it. And I think I'll give the Fruiths. Is that right?
Yes.
The Fruiths an opportunity to just give me a little bit of general background about the project, and then Trey, I'll let you jump in on some of the more technical details there as we go forward. So this is the March 9th, 2022 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati, and I'll preside over this hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20220010. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted evidence or testimony in the form of writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If we had anyone here from the public, they would then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. As I said a moment ago, I'll give Trey an opportunity to weigh in here on some of the measurements, technical details of the MBE. And then in the event that any party testifies or offers any argument in opposition to this application, which I don't anticipate, I'll give the owners and the applicants an opportunity to respond to that testimony and to make any closing statements. So after all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who is not present at this hearing. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, so I just need to swear in all of our witnesses now at this point. So if you intend on providing any testimony whatsoever, asking any questions, making any comments, doing anything other than just strictly observing the hearing, then you need to be sworn in. So if that is you, if you could raise your right hand, I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, why don't, Mr. Fruith, why don't we go ahead and start with you or Ms. Fruith, if she's also going to be testifying, and you can tell me, just some general background about the project, why you think it's appropriate generally. And then, like I said, I'll allow Trey to jump in as well with some technical details.
Okay, so what we're planning on doing is putting an addition on the north side of our house and replacing the existing garage with a 3-car garage. We also plan on taking off the front porch. There's a screened porch in front of the house and making the north side of that a mudroom. The addition will be a full basement, a family playroom on the first floor, and then a master suite on the second floor. We just plan on making this our forever home, and so we want to make it big enough to enjoy, with our kids. And we have a pretty big lot, and the house would still fit in the lot pretty well.
All right. Anything else right now?
I guess that's all.
Okay. And this is a 2-story addition, you said?
Yes,
is that right?
with the full basement.
Okay. And it'll be on the north side.
Correct.
And then you also, did you mention a garage?
Yeah, the garage will be on the north side of that addition. I think that it'll be about, I think Mike would know better than I would, but I think it's about 8 feet away from the addition.
Yes, it's an attached garage, attached by a trellis structure to the house.
Got it. Okay. All right. And it looks like there's a front yard setback that needs, so maybe Trey, you can jump in here. In order to fall within the maximum building envelope, they need a front yard setback relief. Is that right?
That's correct, David. It's most useful, I think, at this point to look at figure 2, if you would, the topography on my staff report. Essentially, at the back of the subject property and to the neighbor to the north, between their properties, and including part of their properties, is a really big topographic depression. They're not so much on a hill, like we're up on the brow or top of a hill here, as there is part of what's giving it in the hillside overlay is just this huge bowl almost, or depression. It's about 35 to 40 feet deep. It doesn't look like it when you look at the aerial with all the mature trees and stuff, but it's really a pretty darn big big depression there in the topography. So what happened is, when both these houses were built many years ago, subject property was built in 1911, and the house at 4033, I'm trying to think of the side. At 4033 Egbert was built shortly thereafter, a decade or two after. And it's important to understand, if you look at that topography, that huge bowl there, you'd understand why in 1911, why they built the house where they did. They couldn't go any further back on the property because without major engineering and huge walls and stuff, because it drops off so steeply. And the same goes, and this is really notable, and what skews this entire situation is the property at 4033 Egbert. It's accessed by a driveway that it wraps all the way around the north side of their property, very close to the other house that you see further north of that, to avoid that huge bowl. And the driveway comes back, and it must be a very long driveway. Hundreds of feet, and wraps around. And then the house was sited on kind of a terrace up a little plateau up higher above this topographic depression, if you will, this bowl. And the reason that's important is twofold. One, it's extremely difficult, either historically or in the present, for a homeowner of the subject property to build anything off the back. We'd be having some major hillside relief if you did, because you'd be cutting, and I don't even know, but it would be a major challenge. You can see how steep it is there. Also, it forced the siting of that house next door. That's a very irregular and large lot, and they actually did a small addition some years back, and needed relief for this as well. And it's just it skews the maximum building envelope. By the time you average the house at 4333 Egbert with the house adjacent to the south, and you do the MBE calculations, the house at 4033 is so far back from Egbert that it literally makes the envelope of and this is where it gets quirky. I've never seen one quite this skewed. It literally makes it so that the front yard setback is behind the rear yard setback as averaged. So it's like a mirrored thing flipped. It's so far back. I hope I'm making sense. The front yard of that house to the north is so far off the road that you do the setback onto the subject property, it would be back in the back, like in that bowl someplace, okay? And then because the rear of each of them isn't as far as that, but is nonetheless substantial, it actually puts the rear yard setback in front of the front yard setback. So we've had ones, you've seen ones where they're skewed by the weird topography, like an irregular lot configuration, but this one takes the cake. I mean, it's literally, it makes this very ample lot that they have, which is larger, like double the size of what they'd even need in the district. And because of what's in the back, essentially it would be an unbuildable lot if you went strictly with the MBE. There's zero place for it to be built. It's like a no man's land. It's like a negative MBE space, if you will. And it's very, very peculiar. So that's why I wanted to kind of address this with you, because they discussed this ahead of time. Mr. Patchen did, and the Friends of the Fruits, Leslie Alexandria, who used to work in my capacity and now sometimes represents people in zoning hearings. They discussed this with Emily way back, as far as the attached part of the garage with the kind of breezeway, attaching it. And we kind of worked through this and knew it would, it's reasonable insofar as their front yard setback isn't going to be any more substantial than that of the one to the south. And it would meet the base setback, like of the 30 feet for the district. But they have almost no other place to do this. A couple other notes here to make. You see on the topography, you see a little box on the north property line. That's a kind of a defunct existing.
We're still in figure 2. Why don't you share it, Trey? Can you share?
Yeah, I'll try to. I've got a bunch of windows open because I was working on other stuff. I can. Are you seeing that now?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So I'm using my cursor there to point it out, David. See, this is a detached garage that was built non-conforming because it's directly on the property line up there, and it's kind of I mean, their house is lovely. It was a historic home, but the thing, it's kind of fallen into disrepair and it's pretty ramshackle. And so obviously
there.
you have to walk a considerable distance from there to the house. So part of their plan
Is that garage still there?
Yes.
it is, and they're going to it's in the front yard, so it's non-conforming both as the front and side setbacks, and it's going to they're going to demolish that, and then in that area where the driveway is, they're going to curve a driveway around to come in through the new garage, kind of as I'm indicating here. You can see it on the site plan. Then there's another thing to note about this project, which is even though they're going to have a full basement, the way the hill tilts down to the north, sort of off of their house, and I discussed this carefully with Mr. Patchen, is that although it's a full basement, it only the part near the house requires any substantial excavation, and actually the kind of, if it makes sense, the ceiling of the basement will be above grade, and then will come northward to where it's substantially exposed there. So they don't need relief for their excavation and fill, even though they have a full basement. So much of it is daylighted, so to speak, if that makes sense, that they don't need the relief. And then from grade to the midpoint of the roof is compliant with the 35 feet. So they didn't need any relief as to the excavation and fill or to height. Unusually, because usually you're in for that in one of these hillside hearings, but they don't need that. They're following the same contour lines, kind of along there, that you would approach the house from the detached garage for the new driveway. There are a couple little landscape walls along there, but they're basically knee walls, so they don't need relief either. So essentially, you have just a wacky MBE situation. I mean, just completely so skewed that it's inverted. And it would make this very fine lot unbuildable and make it impossible to add on to this very lovely historic home if you didn't have this relief. And I'm just stating, if there was any kind of a normal lot to the north of this, comparable to the one to the south, as far as placement of the dwelling, this wouldn't be a problem, and they'd be compliant with their MBE. But that house to the north, because of that huge bowl there and being built back I can't even remember what it was in my report. Yeah. I mean, it's I'm trying to see as to where that is. It's a little bit further down in my. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through to see where I have that in my report, but basically it's a couple 100 feet back from that. So
Okay.
you can see it yourself. I mean, it's 260 or 250 feet back from the road, which is just obviously an anomaly.
Yeah, that looks like a very, very unique shaped lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, back in 1930 or whenever they built that home, they had no other place to put it because it would have been in a huge bowl, a big soggy wet bowl, I guess, in the woods, like almost a wooded wetland. So they had to, have that driveway come all the way here along that top and back to it. So it's as a result, it's made just like an almost I hate to use the word absurd here because we're trying to handle this in a professional manner, but it skewed the MBE to the point of absurdity till you have a front yard and back of a backyard. It doesn't make any sense. So
sure, no, that I think I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate your time and your testimony on this, Trey. Yeah, this seems like a sort of textbook reason why these variances and zoning relief exist, because one size certainly does not fit all when it comes to the zoning code and the hillside. So thanks, Trey. I appreciate that. That makes sense, and that seems reasonable. Could Mr. Fruth or Mr. Patchen tell me any more about the design of the addition? Does it match the character of the rest of the home and the character of the neighborhood?
You want to go on that, Mike, or should I go on that?
Oops. Go ahead, John.
Okay. Yeah, we plan to match the character of the house with the way that the gutters are designed and all the way the eaves are. Currently it's a stucco house. We plan to change that to like a clapboard style house. But we're going to keep the look of the house aside from the stucco, but we're going to try and match the addition to the original house as best as possible, and then create a seamless look with the clapboard.
Got it. And generally with the addition and the new garage, the size of the home isn't out of character for the neighborhood. Is that right?
Well, our neighborhood has a lot of different size homes, from small homes to, well, our streets. For example, there's a house that's just went for sale up around the corner in Amazon that's like 4,300 square feet. But there's a house, maybe across the street from us that's a lot smaller. So it's a hodgepodge of different styles of houses and sizes of houses on our streets.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think how it's going to set on the property, it's going to fit in very well.
Okay. And will the construction, and sorry, Trey, if you mentioned this, and feel free to jump in, but will the addition lead to any sort of cliff-like vertical slopes with that hillside depression there? And will there be any cuts that might lead to excessively high retaining walls or cliff-like vertical slopes?
I don't think there will be. It's not really a cliff. It's I'm looking down at it now. It's like a ravine that has some pitch to it, but there won't be cliff-like at all.
Okay. Any disturbance to the hillside at all, or altering of the hillside?
No, we're going to be on top of it as much as possible.
Okay. Mr. Patchen, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I just like to say that we designed the addition is designed to complement the style of the home. The roof line respects the existing house, and the existing roof is still taller than the roof on the addition. The garage, we intentionally turned it so that the garage doors were not facing the street, as is the case with several houses in that area. They do have their garage facing the street, but we have the ability to avoid that, and we think that's a more appropriate look. The garage is the structure that's closest to the front, to the street. It's still 30 feet off the street, which is what would be required by the underlying zoning. And the reason we pushed it forward a little bit to that point is there's a 30-inch beech tree behind it on the edge of where the hill starts to roll down. It's a beautiful tree, and we wanted to preserve that and keep it, stay away from the drip line of that tree.
David, you can best see what he's discussing on figure 4 in my staff report, the proposed site plan. It'll give you, he's even depicted the tree that he's discussing right now. So that's be the best figure to look at to understand what Mr. Patchen's speaking to.
All right.
Okay. And with respect to your question about the excavation near the hillside and all, our geotechnical engineer has provided his preliminary report, and we have scheduled someone to come out to test the soil along the back edge, and to determine if any piers are necessary along that side, and if they are, then we will install those. Also, you were concerned about the depth of the excavation, and I don't know if you have the elevation drawings of the house, but you can clearly see that the majority, the basement, the grade around the basement on the back of the house is only about 2 feet above the floor line of the basement. Most of that basement wall is exposed. So I think the geotechnical engineer in his report even indicated that we comply with the 8-foot restriction easily.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Anything else from the Fruits or Mr. Patchen in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here?
No, I don't really have anything.
I haven't got anything more.
Okay. Trey, did you want to add anything else?
No, not unless you have any question, but well, I guess to point out that the garage is just a slab, there. So you can see that, I mean, it's got to have the footings for the, to support the walls, but it's not, doesn't have anything else to it other than frost footings and then the slab. So, and then the driveway, as I pointed out, that comes in about where it did existing driveway does come in up by that. It's just that accessory garage, the older accessory garage is being demolished there, and they're coming in right where that is anyhow. So they've got minimal earthwork there. And as I point out, you can see in the site plan that there are a couple of little knee walls, a couple of feet in height, mostly decorative, but hold there for the driveway on the side of the driveway as you come out of the garage. But that doesn't take them over the cumulative excavation and fill, and those are obviously way below the minimum 8 feet for the retaining wall. So it's completely compliant.
Okay. All right, great. So I think we'll leave it at that then. I have had a chance to review the application materials and Trey's staff report. Based on that and on the testimony I've heard here today, I'm going to approve the project. I need to formalize that decision in a written opinion. That's generally what takes the 2 weeks post hearing. As soon as I finish that decision, I put it into a PDF and I email it to everyone who's in the hearing here today. So you'll have it really just moments after it's complete. And as soon as you have it, you can. That's what Trey needs to see. He'll also get a copy, of course, but that's what Trey needs to see for him to approve the permits. So you can start working with him as soon as you receive that. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can reach out to myself or to Trey. And if you want a status update on the decision, also feel free to reach out. Trey, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to point out in this one, David, this is not a permit adjudication letter or denial letter. This was a preliminary review, so they aren't in for permitting yet. But based upon what Mr. Sturkey has told you, Mike, I think you'd be fine to go ahead and submit for whatever your drawings are up to snuff for it. You always do excellent work, so you get if you want to get those in, I would ask that you please email me and give me a heads up to that, since this isn't already in permit status, so that I can make sure that zoning administrator Emily A. House routes that to me, right, to the permit to me, since I'm familiar with the project. So that's the only thing I'd ask. Give me a shot across the bow before you submit for the permit, so I know it's coming.
And we've got some meetings with structural engineers coming up. We've got a little work to do yet before we
Okay.
It won't be.
Yeah, just let me just give me a reminder, and remember that if things get a little bogged down, that David may remind you there's a limit as far as the period in which you have to get your permits in.
It's 2 years though. So the 2 years from the date that my decision is issued, that you need to get the permits in. So as long as it's within that.
I'm hoping for the Frith's sake that doesn't go that way, but sometimes things have. So I'm just saying that out of abundance of caution, since it's not already in for permitting. I'm just letting everybody know, because who knows what happens to the economy or whatever. So it's just, I'm just being doing my due diligence by explaining that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks again, everyone, for your time, your testimony here today. Like I said, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to either of us, and we'll be happy to help.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.